We'll now go on to Dr. Heft.
Well, I don't know what to say after that. It gives me great pleasure to be here. I commend the CIC for having this event. I'm, I guess, the eternal optimist. I'm the person that loves people. I'm really grateful for being here. I thank God for the opportunity, and I hope I can do justice to the time I've been given. I can give you a little bit of background. I'm from a small town, Milton, Ontario. I guess not anymore, fastest growing city in Canada now. But my father worked in labor relations. He was the manager for labor relations for Eastern Canada. So just to give you a little bit of background, I think I followed in his footsteps in the sense that he had to deal with the arbitrator, the union, and he made himself from a grassroots level. He started off as a clerk and kept re-educated himself and learned and worked through the ranks, and he became very well respected. And September 11th is significant to me, not only for what happened, unfortunately, to those people who were victims on that day, but actually the following year was the day my father passed away, on September 11th. So it has a significant, it has a great significance in my life because I learned so much from my father. Having said that, the skills that he had was, at his funeral itself, my father had the arbitrator show up, the union reps, and the people from management. And I think that says a lot. And the work I do, we were with the executive director of CIC today, which I was honored to be there with. I'm a community liaison for both CIC and the RCMP. And I'm also the bail surety and counselor for Ryan Jasser, the Veal Rail suspect. So I think in some way it does justice to my father that I'm able to try to navigate that fine line and take the qualities that he gave me and try to bridge build in a society that I'm grateful to live in. It's my country. We love you and we love Canada. At the same time, working through the religion as a convert, sometimes you go through a transitional period, and most people make it through. And I thank God that I made it through and had this opportunity to speak today. I end up working in a field of de-radicalization. I probably, to some degree, I'm still radicalized. I mean, when you look at me, it's like the Taliban came to town. No, don't worry, I don't bite. I haven't killed a spider in my house in about 20 years, so I like to think I'm more like a, I don't know, like a big teddy bear than somebody who wants to hurt you. But having said that, I do work in an interesting field. I've worked with many disenfranchised youth in the community in the GTA. I've been involved with the Toronto 18. I think the difference is between Mobeen and myself is he's an operative and I'm a community outreach person. And prior to his involvement, which he took a huge backlash for about 3 months early, I would like to say that I was part of, I put CIC and the RCMP on the trail of the Toronto 18. But I've in no way taken a salary. I don't think I had to get paid for justice. I think it was my civic duty. And I continue to do that, but it's following a fine line of where you get your funding for so you can be part of the solution and hopefully stop 99%, as Ray said, of those people who are not going to commit atrocities but have legitimate grievances about foreign policies, about some of the way we've been treated or marginalized by a turban. I think sometimes I hang on to this turban, not because I don't feel like Rob Heft with the baseball cap anymore. I do, many times, but I think I do because I think the look has been hijacked, and I think in many ways it's not the way you dress, it's the way you think. And that's what we have to be grateful about Canada, is it is a multicultural society, it's an experiment, it's not perfect, but at the same time we try. And I think that's commendable about the people in the room, is that we realize that we were all immigrants at one time. And in fact, it wasn't our country at one point, and although we're trying to get it right with the natives and make up for some of the grievances they have, you know, we're going to have different colors, different shapes, different sizes come to us, and we're going to have to see that as part of something to celebrate, not something to be afraid of. And when it comes to our community, I can tell you from being on the inside that most of the time it's just our lack of integration and our lack of communication. And as the generations come, I was mentioning it earlier to one of the professors from McGill University, the second generation Muslims are much more integrated because they understand the system. They understand that policing agencies aren't necessarily all out to get them like they are in their countries back home. Some people came as refugees and sometimes have some ideas, and they've come as from lawless lands without any sort of system, and they've come here. and become radicalized because, quite frankly, they take the Quran and instead of looking at it as a whole and being able to contextualize the verses in the Quran, they use them in order to vent, some of their emotional and legitimate grievances. And where I come in is I'm a person who works in social services. I'm the hi everybody guy. And I try to get along with everyone. And when they come to me disenfranchised, I work in social services with 3 components. And I don't think it's really formal, our de-radicalization program, because it's not very easy for someone to come to you and say, you know what, I think I need to be de-radicalized. I haven't seen it happen so far. I am the court-appointed de-radicalization counselor for one of the Toronto 18, the convicted members. I am now Raya Jasser's counselor in bail surety because, coincidentally enough, his father had been renting the basement apartment of my house. Most people assume that I was the community leader that outed him, and I said, well, now I'm also his bail surety. I put the guy in jail, and now I'm going to make him better. But it's just, I guess that's kind of the way God works, and when people prejudge and think they know something about somebody, now that's an interesting little tidbit, seeing there's not a lot of terrorism arrests, but they seem to be around me. So I hope that's not a bad thing for me and my family in the future. But having said that, working with 3 components, basically I've been successful with individuals because I win their hearts and their minds, because I try to help them become part of society, and I try to let them see the glass half full, not half empty. I think that's really, really important. And it was important in my de-radicalization process because Mobeen was saying September 11th. I was in Taiwan teaching English when it happened, and I had been recruited by the most extreme group, Ray would know them, Takfir al-Hijra. And they're probably the most extreme al-Qaeda-linked group that hates the world, and they're right and everyone else is wrong type of people. And they had me on a tip, not to kill people or anything like that, but they had me very negative. And I don't like negativity. I try my best to stay away from it. But at the time, I was consumed, thinking this Arab teaching me he had me scared. He had me feared into following him, in that I didn't have a counter-narrative. And he seemed to be rhyming off verses from the Quran and grievances around the world. And it just had me on the tip that everybody was out to get our religion, and I became on the defensive. So when September 11th happened, although I was in Taiwan and I saw the video of the second plane hit the building, it was a celebration of sorts, thinking that, with all the West has been dishing out against the Muslim world, it was good that they were finally getting back what they dished out. And it wasn't until I started studying the religion more, because I had been so naive, I'd only been Muslim a couple of years, that I realized, no matter what our grievance is, we're only allowed as a Muslim to give back what Islam allows, and it doesn't allow to make 2 wrongs making a right. It doesn't mean that I don't believe America makes mistakes, but I don't see it as simplified as I did before. I don't see America as the big devil anymore. I see some of the things they do as, as Henry Kissinger says, they have interests and not friends. I understand there's a lot of oil in the Middle East. I get it. I understand that's why they spend as much time as they do. But some of the hypocrisies that we as Muslims actually do in not following our religion, it happens also with the charters that we have. And some of those things are those grievances that I have to work through with these youth. And by working with theological detox, which is part of it, it's winning them over, because realizing that most of them haven't even studied who their creator is. And once you can win them over by showing them through the religion that they don't necessarily know why they're a Muslim. They've accepted Islam, but they can't really explain why. And when you break it down for them and you realize that the people teaching them are confused on that level, then you can win them over there. Social services is sometimes they just need a job, sometimes they need a friend, sometimes they have mental health issues. Sometimes they come to you and they're reasonable people, but they, when they come to you, they need a big brother, a big sister, a counselor, somebody who can talk them out of it, giving them a counter-narrative. And the final thing I work with is community accountability, being thankful. God teaches us in our religion that you haven't thanked him if you haven't thanked the people. And that's the people who have been grateful. So reminding them, and unfortunately some of the second-generation kids who do get involved, they're much like converts. This is one of the things I think, as Wesley and others do studies, they'll realize that a lot of people getting trapped in this radicalization and this extremism are like born-again Christians, if you will. They come in, and they're not just converts like me. They're also people who rediscovered their faith. But they're like a sponge at that moment, and they can be taken in different directions. And if you don't allow them the opportunity to get that counter-narrative and allow people like myself and others to reach them, then what happens is they can live on the computer and on the internet, and they can find like-minded individuals and isolate themselves. Whereas we have to bring them out. We have to bring them into the mosque. The mosques aren't the problem. The mosques are part of the solution. So until we see it that way, and we allow them to come out and share their grievances. I mean, we're in a democratic society. They're able to protest, but they have to see that they'll be able to change policies and procedures. And I remember in 2009, I think it was Anna Gray emailed me and asked me to edit some of the RCMP's policies, declassified policies on radicalization. And at the time, I remember she asked me, I said, just put it on letterhead. No problem. And then I said, but this letterhead is going to legitimize the fundraising I do overseas, because I work on behalf of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the President of Dubai, Vice President of UAE. And he funds the program. Why? Because it legitimizes that the funding is coming from a Muslim source. Otherwise, I also become marginalized myself. So when they weren't able to put it on letterhead, it didn't give me the opportunity to go back to the people and sell that, look, even myself, who is going through the process, is getting the help from the agencies the way any other organization would, which is getting something on letterhead, recognizing their appreciation for your help. But thanks to some of the work they're doing, and Sergeant Derek MacDonald, Superintendent Doug Best, and the RCMP, who have put that in writing and have put their money where their mouth is, and sitting with the executive director, and you see that your insight and input is changing policies, that's part of my de-radicalization process. So the more I get de-radicalized, the more I'm able to sell it to everybody else, because I'm dealing in facts. I'm here today in front of you and saying it works when you look past this and you work with this from the heart. And really from my heart, I wish guidance for all of mankind. Like I said, I haven't killed a spider in my house in 20 years. Not that my wife hasn't, and I hope she doesn't hold that against me. But I mean, I love people, and you have to be able to bring that out, but I'm not a pacifist. I didn't become this guy who now it's always turn the cheek. I sympathize what's going on in Syria. I sympathize what's going on around the world. These are human beings. They bleed. Their blood is the same as all of ours. And until our interests become human beings first, it's not that I don't like money. Money is a tool and serves a purpose. But we're all human beings, and we should love each other enough that we put the human being first before we put money. And that will de-radicalize a lot of us who are caught up in this world and forget that we all are human beings at the end of the day. Thanks very much for the time, and God bless all of you.